Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to be going over the ability of infection and kind of going over one of those nitty-gritty little intricacies of it, because I feel like although a lot of players run infection, they don't always understand like some of the limitations of it, I guess. And people might think the more infection, the better. So we're first going to take a look at Dayu, for example. She has an active skill, turn 2, she can apply infection to one character at 200%, meaning the character has to recover 200% of their HP in order to clear infection, or have a clear infection ability, or have a clear all penalties, or die and then be revived so that the infection is cleared by that manner as well. So what I'm going to be mainly focusing on in this video is how when you apply infection, which infection takes precedence, because some people will run, traders and Dayu on the same team, but what they don't realize is that if you apply an infection that is a higher percentage, even if it's more turns and let's say trader just needs one more turn and then the 15% from the active skill will kill the enemy, the 200% will take precedence and it'll reset the infection counter. I would say this is another important point to note, especially with trader as a toon on his own, because when we take a look, his active skill, obviously, turn 1 active skill when it's maxed out, 0 cooldown, meaning he can use it for 10 turns consecutively unless he's stunned, impaired, taunted, confused, just dazed even, something to prevent him from using this active skill. But he applies infection, it's 15%, so it's quite low, and it's a 2-turn infection, meaning after the second turn the enemy toon will die if they don't recover from that 15%. But one way around this ability is attacking trader. Now, this seems a little backwards, because if you attack trader, you have a great chance, and a great chance is about 50% of becoming infected at 25%. But this can be manipulated, because if you're infected at, say, 15%, you're about to die after this turn. If you attack trader and you have a 50% chance of becoming infected, the 25% will override the 15%, giving you an additional turn to attack. This is also useful if you run a healing weapon of some sort, or even like a lifesteal or some way of healing just a little bit, because if you change that 15% to 14% or less, or the 25% to 24, 23, any other lower percentage, you can override that infection percentage with a higher one, and the counter will restart. Now, this is something that I've used in the game before, because if I'm infected, I have 15% infection, I'm going to die after this turn. If I attack trader, assuming I don't trigger his rush, because then he's taunting me, he is probably going to infect me with his weapon. I think there's a heal reduction as well as an attack down. Well, 25% infection and I get an additional turn to attack. Well, that's perfect. That's exactly what I want, because my toon is not dead. If you have those fast healing weapons and you only clear 10%, so you still have 5% infection on you, you actually want trader to pick you out to use his active skill to infect you, because this will give you an additional turn to attack. Now, there's a lot of different healing weapons that are out there. There's a random heal, 25% chance to heal a teammate by 50% of their max HP. There's every turn heal a teammate by like 30% of the HP that you are missing. There's just so many ways that you can heal your toons off. So there are a number of ways to kind of manipulate trader, because he has multiple ways of infecting your toons. Another common infection toon that a lot of people use is Mateo, of course. He's become more widely available for the player base, and because he only has one method of infecting the enemy, which is very similar to trader in some ways, except he can infect everyone except for one toon on the first turn. It's only 15% like trader, so it's a very small percentage, but that's why Mateo is often paired up with Wangfa, who on the second turn can apply 100% heal reduction. If the enemy has fast healing weapons or any way to rush on the first turn to heal, I would highly recommend setting his initial cooldown to turn 2 if you're just going to be using the team on auto, because that way he won't infect 4 tunes and then it all be cleared on the first turn. Instead, if it lines up with Wangfa, for example, especially for an auto attack team, then you have no chance of really messing that up, unless, of course, the enemy has heal reduction resist mods or a method of clearing heal reduction. So Mateo, like, great tune to use, just be careful as well. 15%, as I mentioned, is quite low. There are so many ways to counter it. Fast healing weapons are one of the main examples that I've seen, at least, and it's one of the methods that I use. I put a fast healing weapon on my Dr. Stevens, and I find my Dr. Stevens to be very effective at clearing a lot of the infection that occurs to my team. I've also adapted by using S-Class Kenny on my attack team, because when he rushes, he is able to revive a single tune and give 75% attack up and focus to my other tunes while providing that guardian shield on the tune that was just revived. Now, for the purpose of this video, I'm not going to go into the other infection tunes that exist, just because I'm going to focus on these 3, which I would say are pretty common, as well as they have different types of infection, and by that I mean there's different turn durations as well as different percentages, so it will be easier to explain in the rest of the video and showcase how, well, I guess the infection can be manipulated or what takes precedence, because it can be a little confusing to understand. And I've seen a number of questions on the forums before, on Discord, directly to me online, as well as on the community Facebook page, about infection being a little confusing, I guess, or at least having questions about it, especially in the cases where one infection will override another one, while in some cases it just doesn't happen and people can't see the reasoning behind why this 15% infection, that's a 2-turn duration, will not override the 200% infection, that's a 3-turn duration, or even a 2-turn, 1-turn, whatever turn duration. So to start off, we're going to use a simple team just with 3 infection tunes. I did slow this down for the sake of a video, but we can see if we apply infection to all 3 turns. 3-turn duration applied because it's Mateo. If we use Trader, we can take a look. Ivanova's turn count reduces to 2 turns because Mateo and Trader give the exact same percentage of infection at 15%, meaning the shorter turn duration will override the higher turn duration. And this is a very important point to remember. Like, it doesn't often happen, and it's very confusing at times because it's difficult to see. Like, you can't actually see like the turn counter all the time. Like right now, for example, Trader was unable to override his own infection that was at 1 turn. He tried to put on one that was 2 turn, but it of course ignored it, which is important because you don't want to keep like replacing the same percentage of infection with a higher turn count. And now we're going to take a look at Dayu, but we're going to add Priya to the team just to daze Michonne because she's using her daze active skill, which prevented me from being able to use Dayu. And of course, using Dayu is going to be important here to show that 200% infection being applied to the enemy. So of course, daze Michonne. Then apply the infection to the enemy team. We can see everyone except for Michonne is at a 3-turn, 15% infection. Michonne have added a 2-turn, 15% infection from Trader. We can see also Michonne's weapon triggered. She's healing 15%, but she's at 0% infection. She's going to clear this, but there is another scenario that I want to bring to your attention that to me, I feel like it's a bug, but I'm also unsure. So this is something that I'm probably going to bring up just because it's confusing. She's at 0% infection because she's been infected for 15%, but she's now at 0% because of her healing weapon. Should this kill her or not? I don't know, but Pete will end up recovering from that. Anyway, we applied 200% infection to Pete in the bottom left, and we could not override it with Trader, even though Trader would have been a 2-turn 15% infection. The 200% overrides the 15%, which kind of makes sense, but at the same time, you want a shorter turn duration of infection sometimes, which makes Dayu just too slow of a character to reasonably use. Now we're going to look at the scenario where we're going to add Wangfa to the team, just because Wangfa and his 100% heal reduction active skill will add another dimension. With adding Wangfa, it also gives us the opportunity to explore that 15% infection, 15% healing on a fast healing stun and attack weapon, just to kind of see the effects of it overall and to see how it actually functions. Like Ivanova, 15% healing, 15% infection, down to 0% infection, but we're going to apply 100% heal reduction with Wangfa, and we're going to be able to see if she ends up dying the next turn or not. Now, I do have heal reduction resist mods on both Pete's, so they're not being impacted by Wangfa, but the primary point of this video at this moment is seeing if Ivanova is going to die from this infection or not. Realistically, she shouldn't, but we're going to see that this infection at 0% is somehow enough to kill her. And I think that's something that might need a fix later on, but it's also difficult to say because it could be a rounding issue, for example. But I cannot really conclude on that as a content creator. So what we saw, Ivanova died. We have 150% infection on Pete because there was some healing effects in place. With this team, we can see, like, although infection is super powerful, if you create an auto attack team, just rely on a couple infection tunes, because otherwise you're kind of getting redundant and you're adding infection on top of infection, especially if you have healers or healing weapons or lifesteal mod. If you can't get that 100% heal reduction applied to the enemy, then it just goes over and over and over again, and you could be kind of stuck in a loop. That's one of the ways that I've kind of modded my Georgia on my defensive team. I've modded her in a specific way so that she is constantly healing, plus being a vitality tune, it means every turn, based on the amount of AP she has, she heals. So there's a high chance that if you're going up against me with an auto attack infection team, that my tune, my Georgia is going to counter it, because that's specifically how I designed her. Now, I know a lot of players don't have that specific design, but I've also put a similar one on my S-Class Willy, and I guess I'll probably have to show you guys that in a different video to explain why I modded my tunes in a specific way and how they're effective. But honestly, just let me know in the comment section below if you're even interested in that. I don't want to be showcasing anything that you guys won't use or learn from. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching and listening to my video. Let me know in the comment section below if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about how infection is being applied, what the order of operation is, what takes precedence, really anything that has to do with it. I'm always interested to know what you guys are curious about learning about, and if there's any way that I can better explain different abilities. Like, I love combat mechanics, and I love being able to do videos like this that focus on one intricate part of the game that is very difficult to understand at times, but once you understand it and know exactly its functionality, you're going to get better at the game because you understand, you know how something works and how to manipulate it. So thanks again everyone for watching and listening to my video.